Hello and welcome. My name is Catherine, and today we'll be doing a 20-minute beginner's yin practice. In yin yoga, we typically hold poses for anywhere from 1 minute to 20 minutes, with the intention being on really stressing the connective tissues to help create a bit more flexibility and mobility. So we'll take our time with these 2-minute holds today, which will be perfect for beginners. I'll let you know when we're about 1 minute into each hold, so you have enough time to decide if you're ready to come out of the shape and just rest before the next. So we'll only be doing 6 postures, and everything can be done on your carpet or on a yoga mat. We only need 1 prop, so if you have a blanket, that would be an excellent choice. If you also have blocks, that's always helpful too. I'll show just with a blanket to keep it a simple practice today. This yoga practice is great to do at the beginning of the day, first thing in the morning, or maybe even in the evening hours before you go to bed, to calm down the mind and just release any tension in the body before going to sleep. So we'll get started with just setting up our breath and intention for today. There's no specific breathing pattern that you need to follow during this yin class, so you can just breathe consciously. The idea is just to bring awareness to our breath, awareness to how much sensation you're feeling, and knowing when it's enough for you and when it's too much. So we'll start with that breath awareness. So whatever comfortable seat you're in right now, you might soften your gaze or close your eyes. Maybe taking one hand to the lower abdomen, one hand to the heart, if that feels good for you. Or just resting both hands on the legs. Finding a nice tall spine, maybe even sitting slightly forward of the sits bones and allowing the chin to drop down towards your chest. Feel the tongue heavy in your mouth, away from the roof of your mouth. And just take a few breaths here. Feeling the breath rise and fall on the inhale and the exhale. You can breathe out the mouth, or you can seal the lips and just allow the breath to be in and out of the nose, whichever one feels the most comfortable for you. And at this point, if you like, you could set your sankalpa or intention, an intention being something that you desire to achieve, maybe just a positive affirmation that you say here now. With the eyes still closed or the gaze still soft, allowing for this inner thinking, inner knowing. You can start to flutter the eyes open with the next breath, taking the hands down by our sides and starting to come into our first posture today. So if you have a blanket, you might choose to sit on the edge of the blanket just to lift the pelvis a little bit, soften under the seat. The legs will come directly out in front. This is going to be our caterpillar pose. We'll stay here for 2 minutes. You might be starting with your knees a bit bent, depending on how much flexibility you have right now in your hamstrings, or just what you're feeling in your body today. If it feels better to roll a blanket underneath your knees for support, that might feel good too. We'll sit up nice and tall to begin, finding that breath again. Let the shoulders stay away from the ears. And on the exhale, we'll start to fold forward. The principles of yin say that there's 3 things to follow as we find each shape. We first settle into the pose, so finding the place that's just enough. Knowing if this is too intense anywhere in the body, maybe softening out a little bit more. Thinking perhaps of a tension scale of 1 to 10. And allowing for a tension about of a 3. This may be in your low back, maybe in the backs of the legs. Maybe the head rests on a block that's on the top of your legs, or you just rest your head here as the gaze comes down. We'll stay here for 2 minutes. You could even soften your gaze and just bring awareness to your breath, your body, your thoughts. Once you've found that destination, that place that feels good, you're going to resolve to be still and then just hold here for the 2 minutes. This practice is quiet and still, allowing for the mind to maybe become a bit more quiet and still as well. As the body works in its own yin way to release tension and create a bit more mobility and flexibility over time. If this is starting to feel a little bit too intense, at any point you can start to come back up to a seat. We'll just stay for about another minute. So if this still feels good, just check in. If you're not feeling much tension, you could even start to reach a little bit deeper. Begin to slowly come out. So we're really going to come out even slower than we came into the postures. Starting to walk the hands up, walk the spine up, maybe bend the knees in. Just take a gentle twist to the left and the right. Not much, just releasing the spine here. As you come up to the seat, you might even sway the knees side to side. And then we're going to begin to bring the soles of the feet together. So coming to this butterfly shape, you can stay seated up on the blanket if you're on the blanket. And as close to the body or as far away from the body as the feet are is how you're going to feel this. So you might start with the feet a little bit further away, check in to see how that feels, and then decide where you're going to land here. If you're just starting with butterfly pose, you might just keep the heart over the hips and stay seated up in this straight position. I'll start timing us in the 2 minutes here. So as you stay seated, just take a notice of how and where you feel sensation in the body. If you're not feeling much and you'd like to increase the sensation, you might start to walk the hands down towards your feet, folding closer towards the feet. If you had that block there, you might rest the head on the block again here. You might even take time while you're here to just massage the bottoms of your feet, massaging the soles of the feet, the ankles and the toes. We're just finding some stillness here. If at any point it becomes too much, you can start to come back up to that seated place where the heart is over the hips and you're in this straight position. You could even let the feet come a little bit further away from the body. Maybe padding underneath the knees feels good here with a pillow or blocks or blankets to support under the knees. We'll just be here for a few more seconds. So staying as still as you possibly can in these 2 minutes to really get the most benefits out of the yin experience. Again, making our way very, very slowly out of our butterfly shape. You're going to take the hands to the outsides of the knees and gently bring the knees together. Maybe lean back a little bit and windshield wiper the knees side to side here. Realigning the body, we're going to shift to come onto our front body, onto a prone position. So you can move the blanket off to the side if the blanket's there, coming all the way down onto the floor. We're going to find a Sphinx pose. So with the feet long, the elbows somewhere underneath the shoulders to begin. The hands will be flat on the mat. We'll check in to see how this feels in the body. The gaze will be straight ahead, so somewhere along the place of where the floor and the wall start to meet is probably a nice place for the cervical spine. If this feels intense on the low back, then you'll start to walk the elbows down further. So the further ahead the elbows are, the less you're going to have that back bend happening in the lumbar. So for today, you may even be all the way down, with the arms all the way down, the forehead resting on either the blanket or the mat. And in time, you could start to walk the hands back a little bit more. So the shoulders are a little bit behind the elbows, and then eventually the elbows might be under the shoulders. So check in now, see which destination is right for today. And then once you found the place where there's just a mild stress, a little bit of tension in the low back, the feet, tops of the feet are pressing into your mat, the gaze is straight ahead. Once you found that place, we'll stay still for 2 minutes. When the first minute is up, I'll let you know so you could start to come into a further advanced or less position depending on how your body is feeling, knowing there's always that option to come down to your forehead and rest fully on the mat. If this is not much sensation and you feel like you'd like to go a little bit further, you could come to a seal where you press your hands more towards the top corners of the mat, lifting a little bit higher off the mat. This would be a further position that we wouldn't want to hold for more than a minute, especially if this is a new practice for your body. So staying here for maybe 30 seconds today, if that level feels comfortable, or maybe just bringing the hands further forward to that lower version of a Sphinx. Bringing attention to your breath for these last few seconds. And we'll start to lower the head all the way down, so resting the forehead on top of the hands. You can bend the feet in and just windshield wiper the feet side to side, maybe even rounding the feet. From here, we'll press into the mat and come to a child's pose. So you might choose to put the blanket underneath your knees here, bringing the blanket back to the center of the mat. If you have a block, you might rest your head on a block. And then either reaching the arms forward or resting the arms down by your sides, you can bring the forehead down to the mat. If your hips don't come all the way down to the heels, and your child's pose looks more like this, that's a great place to be too. If you'd like to put a block underneath your seat to support you, you might place a block or something underneath to support. If it's too much on the shoulders, maybe the arms are just resting down by your side and you take your gaze to one side or the other, or bring your forehead down to the mat. Again, once you've found your child's pose, we'll remain here for about another minute. Slowly begin to press into the mat, come back up to a seat, coming up nice and slow. And we're going to make our way down to our backs, keeping that blanket in the center of the mat, maybe folding it another fold, depending on how big of a blanket you have. So the blanket is going to come right underneath the sacrum. If you have a block that you're using or a bolster, you could use the block in this place as well. So we're going to bring the sacrum to the blanket and lie all the way back to a supported bridge. So the shoulders and the low back are all off the mat. The hips are on the blanket. The arms can rest down by our side. The feet can be planted on the mat. And this is our supported bridge. So the hips are lifted just slightly higher than the heart. Check in to notice how this feels today. If you'd like to take the next option or another variation, you might extend the legs long here. Another option might be extending the arms up overhead, resting the arms straight overhead or resting the hands behind the head, creating a little bit more opening for the front of the body. Whichever of these options feels right today, find that place now and we'll remain there for the next minute and a half or so. Good time to check in here to see if everything is comfortable. Maybe even closing your eyes and just checking in internally. Make our way out of our supported bridge. We're going to bend the knees to one side and release the blanket out from underneath. Moving the blanket aside. We'll begin to straighten the legs long, coming to our last shape today, which is going to have two sides to it. So last one with two sides. With the legs long across the mat, we're going to come to what we call banana asana. So we're going to start by taking the feet over towards the right corner. The further the feet go towards the right, the more intense. So starting maybe with less is more. taking the inner leg, so your right leg, to cross over the left. And then if this is enough for today, then this might be where you are. If you'd like to add on the arms, we'll reach the hands back, taking the right hand to hold the left wrist. Inhale, lift the heart, lift the head, and start to move the whole body over to the right side. So our whole body is in this big U shape facing the right side of the mat. Finding lots of length and opening through our entire left side of the body. We'll breathe here, again, finding sensation and then resolving to be still. Maybe the eyes close here. The elbows can be as bent or straight as it feels good in the shoulders and head and neck. And if you're not feeling much, you might even start to walk the feet a little bit further to the right now, increasing the U shape. Opposite of that, if you're feeling a little too much, start to come back more towards the center of the mat. Your left hip should be down, so if you feel like your left hip is starting to lift up and stack over the right, you may have gone a little bit too far. We're going to slowly start to release the hand with the wrist. Bringing the head back towards the center of the mat, releasing the feet, walking the feet back in towards the center of the mat. You might hug the knees in a little bit towards the chest and just reorient your hips, your shoulders, your whole body back to the center of your mat. And then extend the legs long. We'll come to the opposite side, walking the feet over to the left a little bit. Again, notice if the right hip starts to come off the mat and stack over the left. Take the left foot maybe to cross over the right. You might even wrap the toes here. And then take the left hand to hold the right wrist. Inhale, lift and lower to the left corner. Arms are optional or legs optional if you only want to do one or the other, or just come in a little bit closer to the center of the mat if it feels too intense at any point. Once you've found your place, maybe close your eyes and just bring awareness to the breath. Bring awareness to the whole right side of the body, the whole fascia, all the connective tissues. If this is feeling like not enough tension, you might start to walk the feet a little bit further to the left or the arms a little bit further to the left. Or come more towards the center if that's where your body wants to be. And then once again, maybe closing the eyes and turning inward for the next few seconds. Taking your time to release the hand, release the arms, release the feet and the ankles. And either hugging the knees in or just allowing the knees to fall gently side to side here. We'll prepare for Savasana or any last place that you choose to be. So either with the feet as wide as the mat, you could come to this constructive rest Savasana. We won't be here for long, so just letting the knees rest together in the center, maybe bringing the hands to the lower abdomen. Or letting the arms rest down by your sides, closing the gaze. Feeling the body melt into the surface beneath you. Begin to deepen your breath here, taking a few intentional breaths in and out. Maybe stretching your legs long. Bringing awareness to the tips of the toes and all the way up the legs and arms, up the spine and to the crown of the head. Sending lots of love and gratitude and appreciation to your entire body for taking time to practice in this yin way, quiet and inward, slow and mindfully. Taking your time to wiggle your fingers and toes. Find movement in the ankles and wrist. And then bending your knees, start to roll over to one side, resting on one side, maybe taking the hands underneath your head like a pillow, keeping the eyes closed if you can for these last few moments. Feeling the support of the earth beneath you as you start to press into the mat and make your way back up to a seated position. Any seated position, maybe the eyes are still closed. Bringing the hands together at your heart center. I thank you so much for joining me today. With love and gratitude. Have a wonderful day.